Alright, so it's Sunday, September 11th, 2016, and I'm standing here at the intersection of Yonge and Bloor in Toronto. I've got my bike rigged up and ready to record, and in this video I'm going to give you a tour of the brand new Bloor Street bike lane. So here we begin, heading westbound from the intersection of Yonge and Bloor, which is kind of one of the main crossroads of Toronto. Yonge and Bloor are kind of the two main streets of Toronto. Both of them have subway lines which run below them. So we're heading in the west direction. And you can see that this section of Bloor doesn't have any bike lanes. But not too far from here they begin, and they go for around 2 kilometers or so, I believe, maybe 2.5 kilometers. We've got a red light here. This is Bay Street we're at. So I made a video near the beginning of the summer showing the same stretch of roadway, and at that time that was right after City Council had just made their decision to go ahead with building these bike lanes. So I wanted to make a video showing kind of what it looked like before the bike lanes, and now I'm revisiting it, coming back to show what it looks like after the bike lanes. Now I will point out that the new bike lanes are a pilot project, which are to be left installed for a period of 1 year. And depending on how they affect things, we'll see whether they get left there, whether they get extended, or whether they revert back to having the road the way that it was before the pilot. So this area of Toronto that we're riding through now is known as Yorkville. Lots of shopping opportunities in Yorkville. Many of the big department stores and store chains have their flagship store in this area. So it's a pretty nice Sunday afternoon. Temperatures pretty warm, I think. When I looked at it earlier today, it was 29 Celsius. Although there's a bit of a cooler breeze, it's kind of welcomed at this point because we have had quite a hot summer with a lot of really hot weather. We got a fair bit of rain yesterday, so that may have cooled things down a bit. So we're just approaching a street which is called Avenue Road. And if we were to turn left from here, we get down to an area called Queen's Park, which is where the Ontario legislature is, for the provincial government of Ontario. So here's where the bike lane begins. So right here at Avenue Road, and it's a nice protected bike lane for most of the sections. You'll see that right here we've got our nice big wide bike lane, and then on our left we've got a row of parked cars protecting us from the moving cars, and quite a nice buffer between the bike lane and the car lane, which allows room for car doors to open, so you're not having to worry so much about running into an opened car door. So basically, essentially, I mean, of course you can go back and watch the video showing what it looked like before, but essentially the way this road functioned before, it had 2 lanes in each direction, but for 90% or probably more than 90% of the time, there was usually car parking in the outer lane. So the lane that we're kind of riding in right now, this would have been just a parking lane before, as well as the lane on the far other side. So for most of the time, this just functioned like a 2-lane road. The only exception would be during rush hour. They would restrict the parking so you could only park on one of the 2 sides. So what they've done now instead is they've added bike lanes on either side, and then they've taken and they put in permanent parking on one of the 2 sides, and that permanent parking functions as the separator between the bikes and the moving cars. This is St. George Street. And I should mention that we are riding up along Kind of Bloor is the northern boundary of the University of Toronto. Most of the buildings on their left would have been part of University of Toronto, which is the big university in downtown Toronto. So compared to riding a bike on this before, it feels so much more safe having this designated lane, and I think they've designed it in such a way that it functions really well. There's, you know, I have seen very few instances where cars were blocking the bike lane. There have been a few areas that are better than others, but that's always the problem with bike lanes, is that, you know, you put in a great bike lane, but then a car parks in it, and then all of a sudden you have to go from this nice, slow-moving, safe bike lane into the main road and go around the car. I haven't had that many opportunities to ride this bike lane yet. It has been here for almost a month though. But from what I've heard, most people seem to like it. That's Spadina Road we're just crossing. Spadina and St. George Bay. Those are the main ones we've crossed already. And all of those have subway stations for the Bloor subway line, which runs below us. This area here is kind of known as the Annex, or at least, you know, what the area that's kind of north of Bloor around here is called the Annex. Now you'll see this section here, unfortunately, doesn't have any kind of protection between the bike and the car. There's no, you know, there's no separation other than just that line of paint, which is kind of unfortunate, but unfortunately that's what they had to do here because of lane width restrictions. There just wasn't quite enough width here to be able to put in any kind of a buffer. You look at these lanes, you know, these lanes out here, and you go, that's a pretty wide lane. Why does, like if you look at that van ahead of us, it's taking up a very small, you know, it's taking up probably only about 60% of that, 60% of the actual lane. Well, unfortunately, the reason that they have to have the lane so wide is because of our buses we have in Toronto. When a city bus drives along here, it's got big mirrors that stick out in either direction, so they need to have quite wide lanes for buses. So we're approaching Bathurst Street up here, and on the left side you'll see the Honest Ed's building, which is a kind of a discount department store, kind of similar to Walmart, but it's been around, you know, forever. And unfortunately, this is the last year for Honest Ed's. They're closing their doors at the end of the year. You see they have a very bright sign over there on the left, just past the traffic light. That's the Honest Ed's building with the big flamboyant display, all the big signs. At night it's really neat to walk by here because it's covered in lights and they light it all up. Very brightly lit. So now we just, after crossing Bathurst, we're now in an area that's called Koreatown. So you'll see a lot of Korean businesses around here. And actually a couple weeks ago, I posted a video on my other YouTube channel, my music YouTube channel, cjhoyle Music, and that was during the Open Streets Festival, which is where they closed down a big section of Bloor and Yonge to cars, and they just opened it up for pedestrians and cyclists and rollerbladers and all, you know, you name it, anything other than cars can pretty much use the street. And I was out here with my girlfriend, and I was actually riding my unicycle, and I recorded a video playing my ukulele while riding my unicycle, and I posted that on my other channel. And I was actually riding kind of in this area around here, so you may recognize some of the businesses. So this section here now, you have your protected bike lane left. You know, they just had that extra, I don't know, looks like about 40 centimeters or so of space, which allows them to put in a thicker line, as well as put in those flexi posts, which do make things a lot safer. And certainly help as well to keep cars from parking in the bike lane. So the official opening of these Bloor bike lanes was back on the 12th of August, which is almost 1 month ago now. And I was fortunate enough to be there. There was an inaugural ride beforehand, and then there was a press conference. And it was really interesting because, you know, they say that the bike lanes on Bloor, they're something that people have been advocating for, trying to get for like 40 years or something ridiculous like that. And it's really taken a long time for the rest of the city to kind of come on board and kind of realize that, yeah, you know, bike lanes are the way of the future. And anyways, I made a video of that on the day that that was happening. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I'd recommend going and checking out that video as well. So now we're approaching a street called Christie. Christie also has a subway station. So does Bathurst, one that we crossed a little bit earlier. And Christie is also the border of one of the parks called Christie Pits. You probably can't see it very well behind that gray box that's there, but it's over on the right-hand side, which is a fairly big park for downtown Toronto. It's got a bunch of baseball fields and a recreation center. They have a skating rink outdoor skating rink in the winter you can come and skate at. You can see Christie Pits Park a little better now, as I said, over on the right-hand side. Always lots of people out enjoying the nice weather.
You know, fucking OC.
Red light here. There we go. So this traffic light here is Shaw Street, which is the end of the bike lane. The reason they decided to end it here is because Shaw has a contraflow bike lane on it. I'm just going to turn right here because we're going to turn around and ride back. In my original video, my first video where I was showing the before bike lanes on Bloor, I rode all the way from Yonge over to High Park, which is I guess the biggest park in the downtown area. And the reason I went there, because it just seemed like a good, logical place to end. But now that I'm showing the actual bike lanes, if I were to ride all the way out to High Park, virtually nothing will have changed. So I'm just gonna ride back along the other side because there's bike lanes on both sides of Bloor. And it's a pleasure to ride on both sides, and they're a little bit different. I mean, you see the way the parking works, it kind of alternates between the two different sides, right? So right here you can see it's on this side, but on the other side there's no parking, so it varies a little bit on both sides. So I think it's nice to be able to capture riding on both sides of the road. So I guess some of my most recent videos were product review videos I've been doing. Over the years on being on YouTube, I've been contacted a few times with people, you know, offering to send me something for me to make a review video on. And I mean, it seems tempting to be, you know, just to be given some kind of a product for free. But if the product is not something you actually really want or want to use, it ends up being a lot of extra effort because Making a video actually takes quite a bit of effort. At least those kind of videos. I have less experience making them, so it ends up taking quite a while, and then editing it all afterwards. Making a video like this, just riding a bike, is not a whole lot of effort for me. Really straightforward to do. Just pretty much kind of plan out where you're going to ride ahead of time, and then you just strap the camera on your bike and go for a ride. Although you do want to pick it so it's on a day when the weather is somewhat favorable. So I am really impressed so far in our ride along Bloor. We haven't had any cars obstructing the bike lane. I mean, there was one situation where the car was kind of blocking the main traffic lane, and they were, I guess, making the bike lane a little bit, encroaching a little bit on the bike lane, but still didn't have to stop and go around them or anything. But as I said, they're not perfect. There have been times when I've been riding on here and I have had issues with that. If you were to come right back to Bathurst, you can get a better view of the Honest Ed store. Yeah, it's a really neat store. If you live in Toronto and you've never shopped at Honest Ed's or never visited, I would recommend doing it in the next couple of months before they close their doors, because it is a pretty unique shopping experience. In a store like that, you're bound to find at least something you need to buy, and of course at a good price. Now, going past there, on our left back there, you saw there was a whole bunch of people standing on the sidewalk. They were all standing in line for in front of the movie theater there. There's the Bloor Cinema, which is a theater which just shows documentary films. You know, it's not like a regular feature film kind of a movie theater that shows the popular movies. They just usually just air the less popular movies. Just one theater there. But I believe this weekend is the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF. And I think they might use that theater for screening some of the film festival movies. I'm not sure about that. There's certainly a lot of theaters that are further downtown that they do that, but I think they might there as well. All right, coming back up to Spadina Avenue. And these buildings, as I said, here on the right-hand side are part of the University of Toronto. And now that school is back in session, you'll see a lot more students walking around this area. And coming up on St. George Street, which is again another subway station, subway stop underground. But yeah, I have to say I'm really impressed with this bike lane, and I really hope that the results from all of the different studies and surveys and all the kind of research they're doing on this pilot will come out showing favorable results, and they will not only vote to keep this in place, but also to extend it and do the rest of Bloor and eventually Danforth as well. And you got a bike lane on Bloor. Having a bike lane on Yonge is hopefully a next step. Yonge is, as I said, the other major main street of Toronto. It goes north-south, Bloor goes east-west. I didn't point out earlier, this building that's on our right-hand side, this is the Royal Ontario Museum, known as the ROM, R-O-M. And we're at Avenue Road, or the road changes names here, it becomes called Queen's Park, but to the left side it would be called Avenue Road. And that is where the bike lanes end. We're back with the Sharrows again. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed joining me on this tour of the brand new Bloor Street bike lanes. If you want to find out how you can help to support the bike lanes on Bloor and help get them made permanent, check out bloorlovesbikes.ca. There's a link below in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. And thanks for watching.